Today's British accent method live training, and today we're going to be doing specifically a connected speech implementation workshop. I'm going to get into why this is really important for you in just a moment, but first of all, happy Friday. Huge welcome to everyone who's joining. Thanks for joining me live here today. The plan is to go live for about half an hour, and I'm just going to give you a ton of value to give you confidence specifically with connected speech, and I'll explain why that's important in just a moment. The way that it's going to work is it's going to be quite an interactive training. I want to be helping you to implement connected speech with examples that you're finding challenging. Okay, I'm going to give you the techniques and I'm going to show you how to actually implement them. But what I want you to do is in the comments, let me know the challenging words that you want to apply the techniques I'm going to share with you today, so that we can create a massive breakthrough in your pronunciation on the call today. Okay, so I'm really, really looking forward to this. It's a Friday afternoon, 1 p.m. in London. Grotty weather outside, raining, but quite warm, so I'm not complaining. I've just been out for a nice coffee this morning, black Americano. A great way to start the day. So let's dive in. Thanks everyone who's joining. So here's what we need to know. There are 3 steps to improving your pronunciation. There's linguistic programming, where you understand how you have been programmed to speak a language by understanding your native language. Then we have what's called linguistic priming in the British accent method, where we essentially prime you to make learning English pronunciation much easier. Because for many people, learning pronunciation can be really difficult, and a lot of people really struggle to actually take any pronunciation improvements and implement them into their English speaking. And it's because they haven't primed themselves linguistically to make that like possible and easy. So when anyone joins my British accent method coaching program, the first 30 days is called the 30-day confidence fast track, where we basically spend the first 30 days priming you by building you what I call a native English operating system, so that then when you actually come to focusing specifically on sounds, the sounds that are stopping you from speaking clearly, you can quickly and effectively learn the sounds for one, but then integrate them into your English speaking like a native. But you're going to really struggle to do this if you haven't already primed yourself to make this easy, okay? And that's a combination of understanding, again, how you've been programmed by your native language to speak a language compared to English, and then to laying some really solid foundations to build your native English operating system. And part of your native English operating system is connected speech. And the reason why is this: words and syllables take on a different pronunciation when they're used in connected speech. And this is the specific focus of today's training. I want you to understand this so that you can apply this immediately to yourself. If you're currently struggling with your pronunciation, this might be the reason why. I want you to be able to take the techniques I'm about to show you today and actually implement them into your English speaking right away, okay? Whether you're in my program or not, I believe that you deserve confidence like a native. I'm fighting to help you achieve it. It's my mission to give you confidence like a native. And I have a mission which is called 1 billion frustrations gone. I want to save English learners from experiencing 1 billion frustrations that they would do if they didn't know how to improve their pronunciation and speak English clearly and confidently. Okay, so that's why I'm giving you some of my best techniques for free, because I really am fighting for your confidence in English and want to see you succeed. Okay, so let's dive in right away. Let's take a word, just to exemplify the point here, let's take a word that ends in K. For example, speak. Okay, speak. Very simple, the word ends in a K, speak, all right? But in connected speech, if the next word begins with a vowel sound, then that K sound is released at the beginning of the next syllable. So what tends to happen with a lot of people who I work with in my coaching program, and let me know in the comments if this happens to you too, okay? A lot of people from all around the world who I work with, and these are very clever people, these aren't silly people, these are very, very clever people, university professors, business owners, PhD students, academics, lawyers, people from all sorts of backgrounds, okay? They're clever people, but what they find is when they try and use connected speech, sometimes they feel like they're choking or like they're pausing unnaturally. And that's why they feel like they can't then take the pronunciation improvements that they have been making in the past and integrate them into their English speaking. So what you need to know is that if words end in a consonant sound like speak, and the next word begins with a vowel, what you want to do is release that K sound or that consonant at the beginning of the next syllable. But there's a couple of very important points you need to know here, and I'm going to give you examples to make this very clear. If I take the word speak and the next word about, okay, we want to remove the pause, speak, about. That pause, we want to go, okay, because native English speakers that have been linguistically programmed to speak English like a native, they wouldn't pause there unless there was a specific reason to, okay? And because you haven't been linguistically programmed to speak English like a native yet, I'm going to help you do that. You're going to probably pause unnaturally there. And then when you try to remove that pause, that's when you can feel like you're choking or pausing unnaturally, and you can find like the sounds just aren't coming out. So I'm going to reveal two techniques that I use with my professionals in my program all the time, and this immediately helps them to fix this, okay? The first technique is called the singing technique, but the concept that's even more important than that is what I call the syllable technique, and I'm going to show that to you in just a moment. First of all, though, I've already told you that you release the consonant at the beginning of the next syllable when that next syllable begins with a vowel. However, what you don't want to do, and this is a mistake that people make when they start trying to do this, is they will over-release that consonant at the beginning of the next vowel. So if we take the two words speak, about, the first syllable of about is a schwa sound, which means it's unstressed. It's a very, very quiet and quick syllable, and the rhythm of about is da-da, da-da. That second syllable is longer, it's the stressed syllable. The first syllable is very short, so da-da, da-da. That's the rhythm of about, da-da, short, long, okay? Now, if we say speak about, so that you can feel the rhythm of speak about first of all, the rhythm should be da-da-da, speak about, long, short, long syllable, long syllable, long, short, long, speak about, okay? The mistake that you can make though is over-pronouncing that K sound. So the way that I explain this is when you release the syllable at the sound, the consonant at the beginning of the next syllable, you only want to release it with 50% strength. So if I was normally going to make a K sound with 100% strength, for example, can, now I'm only going to release it with 50% strength, half of the strength. So instead of speak about, where it sounds like the next word actually begins with a K, instead, I'm only actually doing it with half strength. So speak about, okay? That's very important. That applies to all consonants in connected speech. You only want to release the consonant at the beginning of the next word that begins with a vowel with 50% strength, okay? But you do release it at the beginning of the next syllable, okay, or the beginning of the next word. Just an important point to mention as well here is, and this is a really good question that I get asked a lot by people in my program, is sometimes consonant sounds are pronounced differently based on if they come at the beginning of a syllable or at the end of a syllable, okay, or the end of a word. So for example, the K sound, if I say k at the beginning of a syllable, it has aspiration, which means that if you put your hand in front of your mouth and say k, 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 you should feel a big puff of air come out of your mouth. That's how we make the K sound in English. So there's a big puff of air that comes out. K, k, k. Lots of languages don't have aspiration, which means that when you pronounce the three aspirated consonant sounds in English, p, t, k, or p, t, and k, as in pan, tan, and can, many speakers of languages that don't have aspiration will struggle to pronounce the aspiration in English. And that's, again, why linguistic programming is important and understanding your linguistic programming, okay, which is what we do in the British accent method. That's step one of the process, okay? So going back to the K at the beginning of syllables is aspirated. The K at the end of syllables does not have aspiration. If I say speak, there's a tiny release, but there's not a big puff of air like this. Speak, speak. If I did that, it would make it sound like speak was 2 syllables, speak, instead of 1, speak. Removing that aspiration removes what would make it sound like an extra syllable, okay? So then when you put speak into connected speech with speak about, you release the K at the beginning of the next syllable, but then you don't pronounce it with aspiration. So I'm not saying speak about, which would make it sound like about actually began with a K sound, which it doesn't. It's not about, it's about. But we do release the K at the beginning of the next word. Okay? So does that make sense so far? Let me know in the comments if this is making sense. And give me an example of, in the comments, 2 words where word 1 ends in a vowel sound, sorry, a consonant sound, and word 2 ends in a vowel sound. And I will show you how to do this for yourself in connected speech, okay? Type in the comments now any word that you find challenging that ends with a consonant, and I will show you how to integrate this immediately in connected speech, just like a native English speaker, okay? And once again, this is critical for enabling you to actually make pronunciation easy for yourself, because if you don't prime yourself to make pronunciation easy like this, you're still going to then struggle to integrate pronunciation into your accent, because you're going to find that if you can't do this, you feel like you're choking, or you're just struggling to connect it up and remove that pause. Okay? Are you finding this useful so far? Let me know in the comments if you're finding it useful so far. Okay? And then I'll give you another example. Cool. Okay, right. Let me give you another example just to really drive this point home. Okay. In fact, no, I'm going to give you another example, but first I'm going to give you the syllable technique, which is the technique. Doreen, great to have you here. Great to have you here, Doreen. Thank you. Doreen has recently joined my program. Doreen, absolutely fantastic to have you here. And I will use the example that you've just given in just a second. Okay. And actually, Doreen, when I was reviewing your pronunciation the other day, connected speech, like I said, was going to be important for you. So this is going to be really, really useful. Okay. So the syllable technique is a technique I created to help people that were on my live Zoom coaching sessions to immediately stop feeling like they were choking in English when they were trying to use connected speech. And here's how the syllable technique works. Okay. If we're going to say speak about, there's 2 steps to this process. What we do is, instead of imagining that speak about are 2 separate words with a challenging pause in the middle, we imagine that the first syllable of the next word is actually part of the first word. So the first syllable of speak about is the schwa, about, So what we do is, with the syllable technique, we imagine that that first syllable is actually part of the first word. So you get speaker, 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 okay? This is really powerful, because by imagining that it's part of the first word, the connected speech barrier is actually part of that first word, it immediately enables you to remove that pause. And here's why. When we take long words in English, like proletarianization, I don't normally pause in that long word. When I have long words in English, I don't pause halfway through the word. Proletarianization is 1, 2, proletarianization. It's 8 syllables long, okay? I don't pause when I say that word. And even as a learner of English, if you learn that word, you would learn that word without pauses. So the the syllable technique is a technique that enables you to imagine the connected speech junction between the 2 words without the pause. Okay, so instead of imagining speak plus about, if you imagine speaker, 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 you should be able to do that immediately without that pause, okay? Or at least conceptually, you should be able to understand it without the pause, okay? It's speaker. You've just moved that first syllable of word two onto the end of word one, all right? Speaker. And then you should from there be able to join the whole thing together. Speak about, speak about, speak about, okay? However, it might be that that doesn't fix it for you. You might understand the concept, but that might not fix it for you. When I'm working with clients on my live Zoom coaching sessions with this, sometimes they get it in, for about half of the people that solves it. For about half of the people, it doesn't quite solve it. They still need the next step in the strategy, okay? So the next step in the strategy is to then imagine hang on a sec. I've just lost my train of thought. One sec. Yeah, the next step in the strategy is to imagine, if you're really struggling still to connect that k onto the beginning of the next syllable, is to imagine that the next syllable is k, kabout. Imagine that word actually begins with the consonant from word one. Kabout, kabout, kabout. Immediately again there, you've just removed the connected speech junction. Okay, kabout, kabout, kabout. If you say that, there's no pause in between the K and about, all right? So kabout, kabout, kabout. And then as long as you pronounce the K without aspiration, in the same way that it's pronounced when it comes at the end of words, which isn't that different, you just remove the aspiration, you're there with it, okay? And just remember, again, half strength, and then you're there, all right? Now, when I do this live, for people on my program, about another 25% of people will probably get it at this stage. But if they're still struggling, then we go into two techniques I have that enable you to actually feel the connected speech in a different way, which are the singing technique and the whisper technique. And they're quite self-explanatory. When you sing, you don't normally pause. If I sing a phrase, for example, the coffee is cold, I apologize for punishing you by listening to me sing, but if I sing this, it would sound like the coffee is cold, the coffee is cold. Okay, I'm not a good singer. I apologize, but it's to prove a point. Okay, if you sing the phrase, it makes it much easier to remove those pauses. Okay, so if, for example, if I'd said to you, okay, practice speak plus speaker, which was the first of the syllable techniques, if you then sang that, speaker, 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 if for those that were still struggling, when they sing it, that should then be the step that enables them to actually take it and integrate it into, like, with connected speech without the pause. Okay. And finally, if the singing technique still hasn't got it for you, finally, the whisper technique, which is another British accent method technique, should be the one that finally knocks it on the head. Okay. And the whisper technique is very simple. You imagine that you're in a room and there's a baby that's been crying all day and the baby's finally gone to sleep. Okay. And the last thing you want to do is wake the baby up by talking. So what do? You whisper instead. You whisper instead. And when you whisper, your voice isn't vibrating. There's no vibrations in your throat. Okay. If you just talk, say something out loud now. Say, my name is Michael. If you do that with your hand on your throat, you will feel vibrations in your throat. If you now whisper and say the same thing, my name is Michael. My name is Michael. If you whisper properly, you will feel no vibrations in your throat. It doesn't matter if you can't whisper properly. The fact that you're trying to whisper is what makes a difference here. When you try to whisper, it can make certain things easier to say. So if you then try and say the same thing, which is speaker, 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 using the syllable technique with the whisper technique, you should then be able to say it without pausing. Okay. And I've worked with people that have had the most difficult difficulties with connected speech that you can imagine. Okay. And I've never worked with anyone that's had challenges with connected speech that hasn't been able to use this 4-step process to master any connected speech junction in English that they're finding difficult. Okay. So if you use this process for word junctions where word 1 ends in a consonant sound and word 2 ends in a vowel sound, I can guarantee you, like, if you still struggle, then you probably want to get some feedback, and you can get feedback if you're in my program from me. But applying these 4 steps is a simple step-by-step process using the syllable technique to think about the concept in a different way, first of all, and then thinking about it in a much easier way, and then applying the whispering or singing technique to it will enable you to master this. And again, going back to the importance of this is important because using the word speak in English before about, like a native with native linguistic programming, which is what the British accent method gives you, is completely different to using the word with clear pronunciation on its own in English. So that's why even if you have clear pronunciation of the word and the sounds in English, but you don't know linguistic programming, and you've not built a native English operating system, you can still struggle to implement this into your English speaking. Okay, and that's why in the British accent method, the first 2 stages are understanding your linguistic programming and then linguistic priming yourself by building yourself a native English operating system before you actually go deep into pronunciation. Because if you do it that way, it then makes pronunciation much, much easier for you to integrate into your pronunciation. Okay. When people are in my program, I also sometimes get them to work on specific, usually consonant sounds at the same time that they're building their native English operating system. Because for certain people, working on certain consonants right from the beginning can make a massive breakthrough as well, but only in combination with understanding the native English operating system and how to linguistically program yourself for English. Okay. Now, Alberto's here. Alberto's also in my program. Alberto, great to have you here. Thank you very much for joining me live on this grotty Friday afternoon. Can I give an example? Absolutely. So Doreen gave the example of drink latte. I'm going to take Doreen's word drink, but I'm not going to use the word latte. And the reason why is because the specific examples I'm talking about today are specifically when word 2 begins with a vowel sound. Okay, I can do consonant plus consonant in another live training, but because I want to cover this comprehensively so you completely understand it, I'm just going to focus on consonant ending word 1, vowel beginning word 2 today. Okay, so Doreen, I'm going to do your example next, but I'm going to use a different word instead of latte. And then Alberto, if you want to give me an example as well, I will work through that example with you as well on the call here. But here's how you can take this and apply it for yourself. Okay, one of the most effective strategies that I sometimes get professionals to do is to take a sentence that they want to pronounce like a native with everything native rhythm, native intonation, native stress. Write the sentence down, and then I get them to highlight where the stress syllables are, how to connect the word boundaries, and they actually write this down on paper. So for example, I've got some paper here. I can show you what I mean. Going through this process yourself before you actually try and pronounce it is massively effective because you tell yourself exactly what you need to be doing at each stage in the sentence, at each word boundary, which is then what makes it actually much easier to say once you've consciously gone through the process of working out each word boundary, how to do it like a native. Okay. And in the British Accent Method program, the 30-day confidence fast track, which is the first thing you do, is all about enabling you to do this with the words that you use every day that make up the majority of your English speaking, because that is the fastest, quickest, and most effective way to dramatically start speaking much more clearly, and then make it much easier for you to swap into your pronunciation, clear pronunciation of British sounds. Okay, so let me just write this down just to show you what I mean here. So if I was saying speak about, what I would do is I would do it like this. Actually, I've just done this really badly. One sec. So what I've done here is, and my handwriting's really messy, so I apologise for this, but this should make it clear anyway. This is speak about. What I've done is I have written down, I've taken the word speak, and I've written down here that I take that K, put it at half size, half strength, and pronounce it at the beginning of the next word. Okay, I could also write no aspiration here, just to make it extra clear that I'm pronouncing this K sound without aspiration. Okay, so like this. Okay, speak about. And then when I practice this sentence, I know, okay, I need to make the K sound there at the beginning of the next word, because the next word begins with a vowel sound without aspiration and at half strength. If you do this for the phrases that you want to practice having confidence with, this is how you do it. Okay. In the British accent method, we do this for the top 100 words in English. Okay, I'll show you how to pronounce them, the top 100 words in English in real English speech, through like by looking at, okay, what are the mistakes you make with these words, and then when you make those words in actual real speech. And then I also give strategies so that if you are then a professional, which most people are in my program, and you have a job like a lawyer or a dentist or a doctor or an engineer, and then you have specific vocabulary for your profession, you can then take these strategies and apply it to the very complex vocabulary that you might have in your profession, so that you can pronounce that vocabulary clearly and confidently too. Okay, so very, very, very important. So are there, Alberto, did you put an example in the chat? If not, so let's have a look. Okay, so I'll tell you what, let's just see what here. Lots of apples. Okay, so actually, I'm going to do Alberto's example, then I'm going to come back to Doreen and we'll finish on Doreen's example. Okay, so Alberto's example is really good here. Alberto, type into the chat now, based on what I've just shown you here, if you were going to apply, like practice writing this down yourself, how would you write that sentence out, that phrase, with connected speech? How would you go ahead and do that? Go ahead and just write that in the comments now, and I'll let you know if you've done it correctly. I'm also going to write it down here, how I would do it. Okay? So, it was this, I think. Right, 1 sec, I've actually written this wrong. I'm going to do it one more time. Right, so here's how I would do it. So let's see how what Alberto's done. 1 sec. So Alberto said lot of apple. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think that's really good. That's really good, Alberto. That's really good. I'd make one comment, which is the S has disappeared there, but that's basically perfect. Here's how I would do it. So ignore the top, because this is why I wrote it down incorrectly. I would do it like this, and I'm going to just so this is how I would do it. So we've got the first syllable is lots, but the S kind of gets released at the beginning of the next syllable. Okay, which is lots, lots. Okay, so I'm just going to write down a schwa sound here to make it clear that because there's two pronunciations of in English. One is strong, which is of, but the main pronunciation of this word, which is used the majority of the time, is of. Schwa sound plus V, of. Okay, so what I've done here is I've written down lot, because the V in of, because the next word begins with an A sound, a vowel, gets released at the beginning of the next word. So we get lot, vapples, lots of vapples, lots of vapples. And again, the S gets pronounced with half strength at the beginning of the next syllable. And then the V, which is the F letter in of, gets pronounced with half strength at the beginning of the final word here. So can you see how this lots of apples is completely different to saying lots of apples? Can you see how that's completely different? And that's why this is so important. That's why if you have clear pronunciation, but you don't understand, you don't have a native English operating system which trains you to do this, that's why you can, even if you have learned pronunciation from watching videos or whatever, you can still really struggle to actually use it in your pronunciation like a native and still struggle to speak English clearly. And that's why in the British accent method, the pronunciation part is the third win you achieve, but the first two wins are understanding how you've been programmed to speak your native language, which then shows you probably the mistakes or the difficulties you're going to have with English. And then we set you up with this so that then when you learn pronunciation clearly, it's much easier to integrate it into this system, which I call your native English operating system. Okay? So Doreen put a really good example in, and let's just have a look at it here. Where are you, Doreen? So Alberto, does that help, by the way? Let me know if that's nice and clear. Doreen's example was point asymmetric effect. Point asymmetric effect. Cool. Okay. Point asymmetric effect. Okay. Cool. So point asymmetric effect. This is a really good one. Okay. So in this one here, Alberto says, yeah, great, good. So in point asymmetric effect, I'm just seeing how Doreen has written it, because he's also written down the actual how he would do this as well. Point asymmetric effect. Okay, what I'm actually going to do very quickly is I'm just going to double check myself the correct pronunciation of asymmetric, because I want to make sure that I'm actually going to explain this perfectly, okay? Because sometimes when I'm doing these lives and I'm kind of very focused on actually teaching the concepts, I draw blanks on pronunciation. So just one second, I'm just going to double check the pronunciation of this to make sure that it's clear. Just one sec. I'm back. Right, I thought so, yeah. One sec. So, and by the way, everyone has personal preferences here. My personal preference for checking words is the Cambridge English Dictionary. The reason why I stick with the Cambridge Dictionary is because the Oxford Dictionary, which is also great, often will use different phonetic symbols to the Cambridge Dictionary, and it also doesn't kind of go as detailed on pronunciation. So my personal preference, just to be consistent, and is the Oxford Dictionary. So yeah, so I thought so. Asymmetric. That's the pronunciation. So going back to how you've said it here, Dorian, I beg your pardon, is point asymmetric. So basically, you've done, Dorian, you've done this correctly by pulling the T to the next syllable. However, that next syllable is a secondary stressed syllable in this word. So in asymmetric, it's quite a long word. There's a lot of syllables. So you have the primary stressed syllable, okay, and then you have the secondary stressed syllable. So met in this word is the syllable with the primary stress. It's the most stressed word, metric, okay, but then A has a secondary level of stress. So asymmetric, okay. So using your example, point A, the T in T in point gets released at the beginning of A, but again, without aspiration. T is another consonant that has aspiration at the beginning of syllables. It doesn't at the end. So point A, and then symmetric. Point asymmetric. Can you hear how that's different to point A, if I was pronouncing it without connected speech, or if I did it with connected speech, but I pronounced the syllable with full strength, the T, it would be pointe, which would be unclear again, all right? So Doreen, let's imagine that you're finding this difficult. Here's how I'd recommend that you practice this. I'd recommend that you practice saying and conceptualizing the first word, not as just point, but as point A, point A, point A, okay? Point A, point A. If you imagine that that's the word, that should hopefully already remove the pause for you. If it doesn't, you could imagine that word two isn't asymmetric, but quiet T, tasymmetric, 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 and then already then if you go back to point asymmetric, you should be able to remove the pause. If that still doesn't help, then we move on to step 3, which is we try and sing it. Point A, or tasymmetric, point asymmetric. Or then we use the whisper technique, point A, or tasymmetric, tasymmetric. And finally, point asymmetric, point asymmetric. And as soon as you can whisper it or sing it, it then becomes immediately clear to you how to then do it just in normal speech without pausing or singing, okay? So, Doreen, is that clear? Does that answer the question? And also, Doreen, because I was talking to you a lot about connected speech last week, I think you may well have been having difficulty with this. Does that make this very, very clear for you? And can you see how to apply this, not just to this example, but also to like you working in finance? Can you see how this applies to other financial things? Like if you're going to say, I don't know, for example, indices, for example, let's look at the indices. Could you see how you could apply that to the indices are all over the place today? The indices are all over the place, right? This is how you can apply this to, so Doreen works in finance, but if you work in, for example, Alberto is an expert tour guide of British history at the very highest level. Alberto, you could apply this to, for example, I don't know, the British Museum's always been popular, right? Or you know, you can, if you work in architecture, you can say the, I don't know, the plans are ready. The architecture plans are ready today. Okay, you can apply this to no matter how complicated and specific the word is for your field. Okay, you can apply this. Okay, here's one for you. So I don't think I've ever told this on YouTube before. I have a rare head condition called sagittal craniosynostosis, which basically means that when I was born, when a baby is born, for the first 2 years of their life, the skull fuses, it grows together, which is why you have to be very careful of the top of babies' heads. When I was born, the sagittal bones in my skull, in my head, were already fused, which meant that my head grew lengthways, which means I've got a bit of a longer head than sort of people that don't have sagittal craniosynostosis. And the only other effect of that is it means that this condition means I'm extra passionate about pronunciation and making pronunciation simple, fun, and easy to learn. But so let's just take that word, sagittal craniosynostosis. If I put that into a word, which is quite obviously into a phrase, where the next word began with a vowel, if I said sagittal craniosynostosis is always on my mind, cis, which is the final syllable, cis is always on my mind. Okay, the S goes on to the next syllable, which is at half volume, at half power. So cis always on my mind. Okay, you're not going to get many more words that are longer or more confusing than that word that I've just shared with you now. And that's how you can apply this technique to any word in your profession to master connected speech. Now, this is just one. There's other elements of connected speech. There's other connected speech possibilities. Like I said, today we've just looked at words ending in consonant sounds, where the next word begins with vowel sounds. Obviously, there's other possible combinations, but you can still apply the syllable technique and the whispering technique and the singing techniques to any possible connected speech combination to pronounce these words like a native in English. And doing this is so important once again, because if you don't just want to speak clearly, but you actually want to be able to use this confidently in your pronunciation like a clear native speaker, understanding what I call linguistic programming and building yourself a native English operating system is the key to you being able to use clear pronunciation in your speaking so that you speak with a confident accent. Okay, so we're going to call it there for today. Ladies and gentlemen, are there any final questions? I'm really pleased that I've had Doreen and Alberto on today, both in my program, and I'm really, really proud of the achievements that both of them are making. Doreen says, brilliant, thanks a lot. Doreen, you're absolutely welcome. And I'm pleased that that has helped. Like I said to you when I was sending you some feedback the other day, this for you is massively powerful because connected speech in English can be challenging for all speakers of all different languages. And for those who are on my Zoom coaching calls, you know that regardless of the native language, it can pose challenges. I do know that for speakers of Mandarin, British connection speech, because of how you've been linguistically programmed for Mandarin, can be a real challenge. But using these techniques can enable you to overcome them, just like that. We've done calls before where we've had people that literally are really struggling, feeling like they're choking. They apply these techniques, and in seconds, they understand how to do it, and they just sound completely natural. So this stuff works. It's massively powerful. The techniques I've taught you today are British accent method techniques I've created. And the reason why I created them is because when I was living in Brazil, struggling with my Portuguese pronunciation, I wasn't able to find pronunciation techniques and strategies that were getting me the results that I wanted. So I ended up coming up with my own techniques for myself. And then when I realized that learners of English were having these same frustrations, I was then able to develop the techniques even further so that they were relative specifically for people learning English. And that's why the program, I'm really proud of the program and the results that people achieve inside it. Like Alberto and like Doreen, what you're going to continue to do as you move forward in the program. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll leave it there for today. Thank you very much for joining me. Have a wonderful, wonderful Friday weekend. Alberto says thank you, and the weather is getting better this afternoon. That's brilliant because I'm going to be going outside a little bit later. So I'm pleased to hear that, Alberto. Thanks for kindly informing me. And Doreen, great to have both of you here today. I can see there's someone else on the live as well. So thank you very much, everyone who has joined me today, spent your time with me on a Friday afternoon when you could be down the pub or doing something else. I'm fighting for your confidence in English. My mission is to save English learners from 1 billion pronunciation frustrations that they would experience if they didn't go through pronunciation training that I'm giving away here on YouTube and in my program. I'm fighting for your confidence in English. If you want to work with me in my pronunciation coaching program, you can go to bamschool.com. That's bamschool.com, bamschool.com, and you can sign up there and you can jump in right away, and I'd be delighted to work with you on your pronunciation. Thumbs up, guys. I'll see you very, very soon. Have a wonderful weekend. Alberto, Doreen, it's been a great pleasure. I think my mum might be watching this today as well. So if you're watching, Mum, thank you very much. Love you lots and lots, and can't wait to see you very soon. And have a great weekend, everybody.